heard some, this is really hard work, and we're in a growth zone, and a little bit of, well, let's get on with it. So let's stick with it and get on with it. So what I'm going to just spend probably 10 or 15 minutes on is just really to talk about what capacities that we want and need in each of the teams, and an opportunity for the teams to think about when you get together, you know, the capacities that you have, and also to talk about why those capacities are important for the deliverables of what we want to have. So as a reminder, in terms of what some of the deliverables are, is that we want to extract or develop the raw material of what public health work is, so that it will then be articulated in a protocol. So you're not developing the protocol, you're developing the raw material that goes in the protocol. And I got a little feedback about my analogy of the sausage machine yesterday. Some people really liked it and thought it was really descriptive, but maybe requested that it be, you know, organic and a little bit more, you know, consistent with the kind of food that we really think is important. So how I talked about it yesterday was developing raw material, and it's going to go into the sausage machine in the summer, and that's probably Brent who's going to help us take all the different pieces, and at the end of it we're going to have the sausage at the end, and that sausage is probably going to look different. They're going to be different flavors, and they may be different shapes, but there'll be something at the end of that. So today what we want to talk about is what are the capacities in the team that will allow that raw material to be understood and felt and held, so that we can at the end point have the protocol. So Julian, if you want to put up the slide in terms of what some of those capacities are. So, and we specifically are calling them capacities instead of roles, okay? Because that's, there's probably roles that multiple people or capacities multiple people will hold. So collectively as a team, we want there to be leadership to get the work done. Participatory leadership processes, those are really important for this work. We obviously want content expertise because we're describing public health work. Understanding the story and the storyline is going to be really, really important as a capacity. I'm going to go into that a little more detail. Being able to see the big picture is a really important capacity. And then asking questions and asking questions and making linkages. So what I'll do is just briefly go over all of them a little bit, and then we'll sort of chat about that. So in terms of leadership, the leadership that we want is being able really to convene, to move forward, to engage people, to keep the task at hand in terms of really identifying that raw material. And consequently, a lot of all the teams have leads that will provide some of that leadership, but everyone provides some leadership in that work. In terms of participatory leadership processes, we really want to use the processes and engagement that we have, that we're committed through our states, and that we want this work to build capacity, we want it to be engaging, we want it to be using the collective wisdom, and we also recognize that there's going to be some interchange that is going to happen with each of us as we do some of this work. In terms of the content expertise, this is really about, we are describing public health work. That's what this exercise is. What is the work of public health? And we have 50 or 60 people on these teams that have that expertise. And don't make it more complex than it has to be. Describe the work that you know, that you do, that you feel, and that's in here in terms of what the work of public health is. So that content expertise is really important. In terms of understanding the story and storyline, is that that's going to be really important as you do this work, to be able to, among yourselves, and then among us as a group, and then us within the broader public health system, is to understand what the conversations were. You know, and sometimes when people say, well, why did you pull out in the standards understanding? Well, for the people who were involved in the standards, we knew that every group had them. It was a thread, and and there was lots of conversation for us to take it out and pull it out. So you may have a conversation in your groups that you spend a lot of time on. You debate the pros and cons. You talk about this. That's an important storyline for you as a team to understand, for us as a bunch of teams, because the connections are really important, but also for the rest of the system to understand. So we really want to be able to understand what the story was and what the storyline was throughout. So what we're asking is for teams is to really pay attention to what that story and that storyline is from when you start meeting till the end. Seeing the big picture is another capacity that's going to be really important in terms of what your work is as a team, but what its connection is with the other ones, and also the bigger picture of the future state of public health. So it's important so what we're asking you to do is get into the nitty-gritty of what the work is, but also to keep a picture, an eye on the big picture at the same time. So that's a capacity that some people on your team may have they may like to do, or that comes intuitively, or that you may want to just really check on an ongoing basis. Do we have an eye on the big picture? The asking questions is really important, and what it can also be really annoying. But we really want people to, we want the role of asking questions. Why are we doing that? Why is that here? Why is that, why are we articulating it this way? And we want the person who asks the question in your teams. And that role or capacity, that may change. But there also may be something to sort of say, maybe we need to check in and see if this is it's making sense to us, but maybe we ought to bring someone else in to see if it makes sense to them. So the asking questions capacity is going to be really, really important. And then the last capacity of the teams is that we really think that it's important that those linkages be made between each other, between the foundational standard, and between others. And that's just sort of a conscious, what are the linkages we need to make? Maybe we need to stop, look and listen right now to see where that goes. So what we were asking, why we wanted to talk about this morning before you go into your team, is we want people to look at your membership and do a little self-reflection on what kind of roles that each of you or interests you have, and just sort of make sure you've got collectively the capacities of the team. And there are probably other ones that we haven't thought of, but these are the ones that when we were speaking with RC directors who were picking teams, we sort of talked about these are some important roles, and some of them have become a little more crystallized in the last week or two as we did more of the design work. So I think what I'll do is just open it up for comments in terms of, for questions about these capacities or maybe other capacities that we should add on there. Julian.
I guess I want to add something to the understanding the story and the storyline, and just to say that I think it's important that people are, obviously important that people are paying attention to it and that they're understanding it, but also that they're documenting it. So you're actually capturing that, you're writing that story as you're going along, as opposed to at the end everybody kind of knowing what the story was, because ultimately when we move beyond this group and the collective understanding of each of the teams and the bigger groups that we have here, we need to go out into the system and be able to retell that story so that people understand where these things have come from. And I think it's one of our lessons in the past is that we do these exercises and we bring everything together and we just go out there and expect people to just jump into it. And that story is going to be really important to bring others along with it. So if we want to be successful with these protocols, having that story captured and handed on and let it become the folklore of public health, I think is going to be really important.
It might bring up to start doing too some of the culture pieces that you're, what is describing the culture of how you make this? I think that's really important stuff to capture and celebrate and put out there too, and be cognizant of how that's different in the different areas of focus. It's just really putting that contextual grain of who we are, not just the work we are, but who we are as a collective. I think is a really important piece.
And it may be things that we want to share as we go along. Right, so that again, keeping with sort of communicating with the system, there may be some important stories and storylines that we want to share as we move along. And I'm gonna, as Julian was talking, Nancy, I was thinking about the comment that your group had. If early on there's some thoughts about, this is how we want to do it, that might be something really nice to get out early. And that story or storyline is really important.
And it's also capturing the tensions that will obviously exist within that team, because those tensions are going to be reflected elsewhere. So when people read that, they will be able to understand and see themselves in those tensions as well. And I think that's really important for people, as Janet and Julian said, is that getting that product at the end is great, but the understanding of how people thought and had tensions over it throughout it will make it just so much more understandable and supportive.
Are there any other capacities or any other comments or questions? Of course, I think I said it very clearly, but it might not be.
So if indeed we've made some linkages, we've talked about the importance of making the intentional linkages and whatnot, we've identified ways. I guess the other thing would be if we've looked at and we question ourselves and we've looked at the collective capacity and we say, look, we feel that we need to have more capacity in X, Y, or Z. We're able to then call on others to step in, support us, participate in, engage, right? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the intention to do it. We're asking you to think about it today, but it may happen down the road. But and I think the intention is that because we want this to be as successful as it is, we don't want to wait to the end saying, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had that. That we can put the word out to the system to see if you can get it or if you know what you want. So now the team pep talk comes. Okay? June 26th. We're going to have the raw material. We don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be good. There's no recipe card. We don't have a whole set of plays, but it's going to happen. We're a good team. We got everything we need. We're going to get it done. Thanks.